Hello, and welcome back to DarkenEmber Forge. As I'm sure you can tell, this one's a little bit different. I ended up tipping my camera over. Well, cameras are very delicate things. Not only did I break my USB connection to it, as I believe I mentioned in the last one, it also kind of knocked the lens out of whack and everything, and well, after hunting around different places and being turned away by quite a few, when I finally found a camera shop that could take a look at it, they pretty much said, yes, we can repair it. It's going to cost, before labor, roughly the amount you would pay on a new camera. So yes, we can fix it, but it's not practical. There is no video this week, and probably won't be one next week either, though it should be here sometime later on in the week. Might be able to pull something out, but I just couldn't stop myself from doing a little forging. Tomorrow, from when this video originally comes out, I'm going to a concert, and I wanted to have Mjölnir to wear. So I had to go make one. It's one of those things. I've started with that scrap of square stock I've been using to test my tongs with, that I had the one end already hammered out a bit to fit my little wolf jaws, and the other end being still square. So I was able to take that part that I'd hammered out and use that to form the handle of it, and I cut off a chunk to make the head out of. And I kind of bent the chunk back on itself and started hammering it flat, doing my best to keep it balanced. Boy, was I having a hard time on it. It seemed like every 2 strikes I'd do to flatten it out would be like, oh no, now I need 4 or 5 or a half a dozen more to try to get it even again. It was causing me a lot of trouble. Part of it, I think, was just not really knowing exactly what order to do things in. I kept trying to set it over the edge of the anvil so that the anvil was against the back of the hammerhead as well as the handle, and hammering diagonally down onto it, which of course caused the whole thing to twist one way. So then I'd have to flip it over and I'd try and it just sort of twist it the other way, and I just kept twisting it back and forth without actually achieving very much. Finally, I became frustrated and said, you know what, I'm just going to hammer this flat. I will just smush it out, make a big flat sheet, and I will cut and file and sand out the shape I want. As soon as I said that, well, it all came out pretty smooth after that. It wasn't all that awkward, and it kept pretty well centered from that part on. I think most of the issue I had with it not being centered was from before, trying to keep it centered. But I got it knocked out, took it downstairs, locked in the vise, started to file on it to get it to the shape I wanted, filed for about half an hour and said, I've had this belt grinder kicking around here and I haven't even put it together yet. So I spent the next couple hours putting together a belt grinder and gave it a little sand. Finished it up to about a 220 grit belt. Nothing terribly fancy. Gives it that kind of brushed steel look to it. It's obviously not perfect. I can see there are divots and chips where I leaned it into the belt a little too hard or at the wrong angle. There's a little burn. I don't know how well that shows up in the picture, but there's a little burn down there where I got it a little bit too hot. All in all, for a first one, not really knowing exactly how to do it, I think it's not bad. Most of the people that I've seen make them kind of cut out the rough shape from a piece of steel and then go from there. If I had had a spring fuller or a guillotine tool, I might have done something similar and taken a wider piece of steel and squished out the handle part, as opposed to taking a thinner piece of steel and building up the hammer head. But all in all, it was kind of an interesting piece. I also made a little hold fast, hold down, though I kind of messed that one up a little bit. I'm not too happy with it, but it does work mostly. I could heat it up and tweak it a little bit. I didn't take a picture of it because it's boring. Working without worrying about commentary, I have to say, is very fun and freeing in a lot of ways, especially making something fun like this Mjölnir here. I was able to just kind of go in and do stuff and swing away and not have to worry about explaining myself. I've said in the past I was going to try to keep my mouth shut unless I had something useful to say, but I always seem to turn into a ham the minute I get on camera. And it's like, acting! Must say something. Everybody wants to hear whatever thing is going through my head, right? Well, that's part of the process, I suppose, but it's not necessarily a useful part of the process. I'm a little bit uncertain as to what to do. I feel almost compelled, as I've said, to share my story. This is something that, even though I've seen, since I started recording videos, I've found other blacksmiths that are very early in and working on projects and doing things that aren't quite as smooth in practice as people like, John of Black Bear Forge or any of them who have had years of experience. So I know I'm not the only one out there doing this, but I still think I'm about the only one who's just come along for the ride, join me step by step. And that feels somehow important. Like I'm going to help somebody see that, yeah, it's going to be rough. Stick with it, and hopefully it all works out in the end, right? Anyway, kind of an awkward video for this one. I hope we will have something a little more interesting next time. That's all for now. So like if you like, don't if you didn't. Please leave a comment. What do you think? Is it a bit of value to try to share a path start to finish, or would it be better to just sort of have the highlights of the path? And as always, have a wonderful day.